Can the Dallas Cowboys win a shootout on Sunday Night Football? We'll break it down on this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's absolutely no cost, and it's easy to get started. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. On today's show, we are previewing the Week 16 matchup between the Buccaneers and the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. I wish this game meant a little bit more, Landon, for the Cowboys. But it's still a big game because the Buccaneers absolutely have to win this game to keep control of the NFC South, and it should make for a fun atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there was a reason that this game just wasn't flexed out. And, I think we talked about it yesterday or the day before, sorry, that this is a big game for Tampa and for Atlanta and the NFC South playoff race. So again, I think with the Cowboys playing a little bit better football, winners their last, 3 of the last 4, right? And really should have won that 4th one as well. I think there's more interest here than there probably was, when we were looking at this game mid-season forward, right? And seeing where we were. So yeah, I think, and look, I think this is going to be a good game. Like, I think this is especially with the particulars of what's going on with the injuries that we've got. I think these are 2 pretty well lined up teams. There are certainly some paths where maybe Tampa takes control of this game and it could get ugly. Absolutely, that's possible. But I tend to think that, just kind of looking at this game overall, that this is probably going to be an enjoyable watch for most of the nation on Sunday night.
Yeah, if the Cowboys are going to win this game, it's going to have to be by a shootout. Tampa Bay is one of the best offenses in the league. We've seen them over the last couple of weeks. They put up 28 against the Raiders, whatever, that's the Raiders. But they put up 40 last week against the Chargers in LA. This is an offense that's absolutely clicking. How do the Cowboys match them on the offensive side of the ball?
I don't know that they can. I think ultimately that's the problem, is that they're going to need to play a lot of takeaway, right? They're going to need to create turnovers on defense. I just think it's a lot to surmount when you're facing I think you're right to suggest that this would possibly be a shootout. And I think when you compare the 2 offenses, one of the 2 offenses has got a backup quarterback in there right now, and the other team has got their starting quarterback and one of the best play callers, if not maybe the best play caller in the NFL. Well, Ben Johnson probably has something to say about that, but I think certainly top 2 play callers in the NFL, and I think on top of that, you see them kind of hitting on all cylinders. Mike Evans is seemingly back in a little bit healthier state. Has played really great football. They don't have Chris Godwin, but in the absence of Chris Godwin, they've picked up a very well-established and very efficient run game. And I think that that's also made them even more deadly. So it's funny because you looked at this team, when the Godwin and Evans injuries happened, I don't know, it was like week 5 or 6. I can't remember exactly when it was, and you looked at it and you thought, well, that could be the end of their hopes, right? And Liam Cohen did a fantastic job of, helping this team pivot to kind of a run first type offense that really helped balance things out. And then when Mike Evans came back, suddenly they had quite a formula for really kind of unleashing this offense onto the world. So I think for the Cowboys to kind of keep up with that, they are going to have to find a way to limit possessions for the Bucs. And to me, that means stopping the run, right? Like getting Baker into 3rd and long situations. We don't really know what the status is of Tristan Wirf. He didn't practice so far this week. We'll see if he practices today. But if he doesn't play, that lineup, whoever's trying to block Micah Parsons becomes a very big question for that Bucs team. And if the Cowboys are able to get the Buccaneers into passing situations, I understand that they have Mike Evans and this has been a very decent passing team. I still think that that's the best way for the Cowboys to fully press whatever advantage they have in the pass rushing element, try to force turnovers, try to force errant throws. Baker is, I think we all know Baker, right? He's a high variance player. He's been playing incredible football this season. Really, really great. I'm really excited to see him back playing at a high level football. But at the end of the day, he can be a guy that can press. He's a guy that will turn the ball over if you force the issue. The Cowboys are going to have to find a way to get that ball back, get some extra possessions, because if this is just a straight race to 40, I don't think the Cowboys have the horses,
I want to dive more into the Cowboys defense against Tampa Bay's offense, because that's really like the premier matchup of this one.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the Cowboys offense in this one, because you're right. They're not going to be able to score 34, 37 points. They just don't have the quarterback. They've got an offensive line that's really young, but I do think they could put together some long drives. And actually, this is what Rush does really well. And we saw it last week against Carolina. They would go on these 11, 12 play drives. And last week, unlike in previous weeks, they were actually scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And that's why they were able to control that game. If they can run the ball in this one, put together 7, 8, 9 minute drives and come away with touchdowns, that's how you end up staying in this game maybe longer than you should.
Yeah, possess the ball, and that's running the football. It's an old school sort of game plan, right? Where you play solid defense, you possess the ball, you play keep away from their offense.
This sounds like a Bill Parcells game plan, right? Like you just use a short passing attack, run the ball, try to get Rico 23, 24 carries, and just keep this game competitive until we get into the fourth quarter, because wonky things are going to happen. It is at home. It's at Dallas. I would assume the crowd's going to be fairly loud, right? So this is a game, Landon, that when the Cowboys get inside the 15-yard line, they can't settle for field goals. Like, it's going to have to be a touchdown or nothing game. And I think they can do that. I think they can put together some of these long drives. We'll see if they can eventually finish them out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that they're going to hopefully be able to run the football. We've seen them have success these last few weeks. Tampa hasn't been like exceptional necessarily at stopping the run, and they've got some injuries in the secondary, so maybe that helps with some of the passing attack, especially in the red zone. More opportunities to throw the ball into the red zone. We've also seen them have better success moving folks off the ball and pushing things through. So maybe that can happen too.
Yeah, they've got several injuries in their secondary, including Antoine Winfield Jr. They're all pro nickel corner safety. He's not going to play. His backup is likely not going to play. Kayvon Merriweather, who was an undrafted free agent last year, I think is going to be one of their starters. It's pretty rough. They've had a bunch of injuries at linebacker as well. I'm not saying the Cowboys should score 30 points or so, Landon, but like 24 points and you have 38 minutes of time of possession. Like, that's how they win this game.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think you got to find a way to turn the ball over, get some extra possessions, and score some extra points than you normally would, because obviously their normal offensive output hasn't been enough to beat a team like Tampa yet.
No. Let's talk about the Cowboys' defense in this one. Without Trayvon Diggs, how are they going to stop Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love PrizePicks. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy, whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports. PrizePicks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on PrizePicks. Plus, this holiday season, they're giving away over $30 million in rewards during Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, PrizePicks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 instantly when you play just $5. PrizePicks, run your game. This episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoffs. It's back, and it's better than ever before with the newly expanded 12-team format. It's guaranteed to be bigger than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you're absolutely going to love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoffs begins on December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. Leading into our first matchup, we've got the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoffs presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We are previewing the Week 16 matchup between the Buccaneers and the Cowboys. Let's swap sides of the ball. Let's talk about Tampa Bay's offense against the Cowboys defense. This has been a really good offense over the last couple of weeks. Again, no Chris Godwin, so they're relying more on Jalen McMillan and Russell Shepard. But it's the run game that has me worried here. Bucky Irving has been one of the best running backs in the league, easily the best rookie running back this year. Cowboys' run defense has been better over the last month. Do you feel confident that the Cowboys can slow down this Tampa Bay rushing attack?
It's going to be interesting, to see, because I do think that it's been a kind of a chicken and egg thing with the run defense. Has it been a case of who they're playing versus how they're playing? I think they're going to get a really good test this week and trying to stop the run, because I think Tampa's going to want to establish the one. That's their way. They're going to want to attack this Cowboys defense. And I don't know that they're just going to relent if they don't have early success like some of the other teams that the Cowboys have played these last few weeks, right? So the Cowboys are going to have to maintain sustained success against the run game of the Buccaneers and against a very explosive running back. So it's a good test. And I think one of the things you and I mentioned that we kind of earmarked that happened yesterday is the Cowboys re-signed Justin Rogers off of the Cincinnati practice squad. Now, I don't know if he's going to be active. He got signed to the 53-man roster. It's possible that maybe he's an inactive and he's late in the week signing. Not he doesn't play, but it's just another body in there that is specifically a run stopper. So maybe they're adding another body. I mean, I think they want Justin Rogers for the long term, but maybe part of the reason they wanted to get him in this week is just another body to throw in there. Linval Joseph is long in the tooth, and as the season goes on, you wonder how many more quality snaps you're going to be able to give you. Maybe you give throw another young body in there, a guy that, look, maybe isn't developed as a dynamic pass rusher guy, but he's been stopping the run and stuffing the run in the SEC at a high level his last few years in college. So maybe he can give you something as a rotational nose tackle. So I think it's going to be really important that the Cowboys try to find a way to, like I said, get them into a situation where the Cowboys can press their advantage. At first and second down is not a good spot for that. Get them into third down passing situations, and then send the house and see how Baker handles it.
Yeah. So, by the way, Justin Rogers was he a 7th-round pick by the Cowboys in this year's draft. I believe this was the last week that you could sign players off of opposing practice squads because they have to at least be on an active roster for 3 weeks. My guess is, Landon, they just wanted to get him back on a futures deal, and that's the best way to do it. Hey, we're going to sign you to the 53-man roster. We're going to retain your rights. And when Linval Joseph retires, I mean, he's a free agent, or walks this offseason, at least we have another big body guy behind Mozzie Smith. But maybe he will play this week, or maybe they're saving him for next week when they play Philadelphia. But at least it gives them another option. Tampa Bay does run a lot of wide zone stuff, so I don't know how valuable multiple nose tackles are going to be on the field at one time. But again, it just gives you more guys. I'm looking at Maris Leafau here, who got to start last week with DeMarvion Overshown being out. This is a game where he's going to need to be impactful coming downhill and making plays in the running back. Bucky Irving has been one of the league's best running backs in yards after contact.
Yeah.
You cannot, which is crazy because that's not what he was in college. You cannot win this game if you're missing tackles and allowing Bucky to take a 3-yard gain, or what should have been a 3-yard gain, and do a 9, 12, 15-yard gain. You're just never going to be able to stay in that one.
Yeah, tackling is going to be important. Making sure you get the ball carried down to the ground. That's not just Bucky Irving. That's Mike Evans as well, as a big body, tough to bring down. You just need to make sure that you're not allowing them to get any extra yardage here, because they're going to be able to pick up enough with the offense as it is. we got to make sure that bodies are hitting the ground as soon as they're touching the ball. You're not letting them run through your secondary, because that's really how this game will get out of hand. Is they can produce, but the thing is don't let them get the extras. Don't let them get the yards after catch. Keep it very tight. Keep it very short. Make them march the field and go the length of the field, so that you can delay the point scoring, so that hopefully your offense can keep up.
The best way for the Cowboys to win this one is to pressure Baker Mayfield. Baker has always been a quarterback when he's in timing and in rhythm. He can be deadly accurate. And we saw that last week against the Chargers, just tore up their secondary, tore up their zones. But the longer the play goes on, usually the worse it gets for Baker. He tries to scramble out, and he thinks he's more athletic than what he is. And ends up,
and he's hurt. And he's hurt right now,
and he's
too.
A little bit banged up right now. And that ultimately is some of the reason why he has all these turnover plays. So if you can create quick pressure, force him to hold onto the ball, he always wants to try to show off how impressive his arm is. I do think the Cowboys have the pass rushers, now that Micah is back, to create some havoc up front. And Baker's one of these quarterbacks, Landon, where the turnovers kind of come in bunches with him. He's very much a confidence-based passer. You get a couple early ones on him, a couple hits, I wouldn't be surprised if they get a little bit rattled in this one.
His game it's funny because he doesn't play like it is, but his game is ultimately very similar to Jared Goff, right? Where he is going to thrive if you give him a clean pocket and he's just going through reads. Flag football, he's going to be able to get the ball to whoever you need. You hit him a couple times, you chase him down from the backside, you make him you make him think he's athletic and that he can get out of the pocket and make a play, and then Micah shows him what athleticism is, right? I think that there is the opportunity, yes, for once you get him a couple times, or if you get the ball on the ground, or if you make him throw an interception, he starts to get into his head, he starts to press a little bit, and then that causes more issues, and then it can kind of start to roll downhill on him. That's happened to him again. That has happened to him this year, even despite him having a very excellent season. He has had a couple of bouts with that. He will fall back into that old pattern a little bit. So force the issue, get him into situations where he's not comfortable, get him looks that he's not, comfortable with seeing. Make him come off his spot, and then make him either get flustered and get out of the pocket and then attack him that way, or make him make an errant throw into double coverage and then take advantage with your defensive backs that can catch the ball.
Last thing, how do the Cowboys slow down Mike Evans, who has been awesome since returning from his hamstring injury? Mike Zimmer doesn't really double opposing number one receivers that often. Now, he will shade over some safety help. Is this a game where you let Deron Bland try to go up against Evans? Is this a game where you're just throwing a bunch of different bodies at him? What's your thought?
I think that you probably are going to throw a bunch of different looks at him, right? You'll definitely get some opportunities for Bland to be one-on-one with Evans, but I think that you just have to find a way to keep it inside the zone. If he tries to go deep, then you keep a topper over him, but really you just don't want to have any long developing plays happen down the field. So you're just attacking the pocket and making sure that Baker's not standing cleanly in the pocket where he can throw the ball down the field to Mike Evans a bunch of times, because eventually Mike Evans is going to Mike Evans it and catch one of those long passes and make you look foolish. Even if you manage to stop him for most of the game, all it takes is one. So you just have to find a way to keep him in front of you. And then if he does go long, you have to find a way to get to the quarterback, pressure the quarterback, make sure he doesn't get clean pocket to throw down the field from.
That's why it's really a bummer that Trayvon got hurt, because this would be a great matchup for Trayvon Diggs, right? Like
Absolutely.
You put Diggs on Evans, you've got the size, the physicality, the ball skills, and then you can just leave Jordan Lewis and Deron Bland on the other two receivers who've played well, but those are matchups that favor the Cowboys. I don't see how Mike Evans doesn't have a big game here on Sunday. Unless the Cowboys just have a bunch of pressure in this one, it feels like this is a big Evans game. I could see it.
I mean, honestly, there's a good chance that it could be a big Evans game and the Cowboys still win the game. So I think that the key is you can't have both Evans and like a big Bucky Irving game.
Yeah,
Evans might get his, but you have to limit the rest of the players if that's the case.
All right, let's make our predictions. Week 16, Buccaneers, Cowboys next. This episode is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? How about through history, economics, in the great works of literature. Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, and The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, and discussions, or just kick back and enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's absolutely no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. This episode is brought to you by the new Locked On NFL show. 2 shows every single day. One in the morning with Tyler Rowland, one in the afternoon by Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Landon, let's make our predictions for Buccaneers Cowboys Sunday Night Football. Who do you got?
I have to pick the Bucs. I think, it's they're just a team maybe a tier above where I feel like the Cowboys can beat, or at least I could pick the Cowboys to win. I certainly think the Cowboys can win this game. There's just a lot of high variance on that Bucs team. We talked about Baker, 90. I said this, and I think you said this a lot when we're picking these games. Usually it's smart to just pick the team that has the better quarterback. It's hard not to say that the Baker isn't the better quarterback of these two.
Yeah.
So I think I'm picking the Bucs to win a close game. I certainly could see a path where the Bucs, get going early and the Cowboys can't keep up and this becomes a blowout. I could also see a game where the Cowboys win this game by more than a touchdown because of high variance issues, fumbles, interceptions, turnovers. The Cowboys defense suddenly playing like they were last week. Maybe they don't get affected by the level of competition and they just are a good defense, right? Those are certainly paths to victory that could happen, but I don't know that I'm predicting that. I think I'm predicting a game where Bucky Irving and the Bucs are able to kind of control the game through the run game. They're able to stay in a balanced offense, which is not something that the Cowboys can, throughout the game kind of sustainably stop. So I imagine that if the Cowboys can't stop Bucky Irving from getting them into positive, situations on second and third down, and the Bucs are able to march the ball up and down the field with regularity, the Cowboys offense isn't going to be able to keep up with that. And there is a chance that this game gets kind of out of hand by the end of it. So, but I'm not going to necessarily pick that. I'm going to pick the Bucs to win by, let's say, 4 or 5 points, I would say.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. I think Tampa Bay is going to win like 27-21. And a game that's close, but maybe Tampa Bay kind of controls throughout.
Yeah.
Like they're always up by a touchdown or right around a touchdown. There's just too many ways that Tampa Bay can win this game. I think even if they're down by 4 late, I trust their offense to be able to go down and get points if they need to. And when you mentioned it, when you're playing with a backup quarterback like Dallas is, there's always a potential for just Cooper Rush to have one of those really bad stinker games like we saw against Philadelphia or Houston this year, where he just doesn't even play well enough to give you a legit chance to win the game. I don't think that'll be the case because he has played better over the last couple of weeks, and Tampa Bay's defense isn't the same caliber as Houston or Philly. But again, when you're playing with a backup quarterback, it's always possible just to have one of those games. I do think the offense is going to be able to move the ball up and down the field. I think Micah Parsons is going to have a big game. I think Oso Odigizua going up against a rookie center and a guy that we liked in Graham Barton. Should have a big performance, but I think Tampa Bay is just a little bit too talented right now. And just to be honest, they're far healthier than Dallas. And a lot of times when we get to late December football, that's what matters the most.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think it changes the angles if Tristan Wirfs doesn't play, because I really do think that's a big injury simply because of the Micah Parsons, aspect of it. But outside of that, like, if the Cowboys aren't able to consistently find a way to keep Bucky Irving from, averaging 5 or 6 yards a carry on first and second down, there just isn't a way that the Cowboys offense is going to be consistently able to score points and drive the ball up and down the field to scoring points, against, look, maybe this defense isn't what it was earlier in the season, but it's certainly better than most of the defenses the Cowboys have played the last few weeks, right? So, and again, Rush is a backup quarterback. He has limitations. He's done a really solid job, again, for a backup. But now we're talking about playing a playoff caliber team that's fighting for its playoff spot in a situation where, the Cowboys are at a disadvantage because of injuries. It would be an upset if the Cowboys win this game.
Yes.
There's zero doubt about that. And if the Cowboys win this game, we should have a whole other conversation about what that means, because that would be a very impressive win. I think if
you could make the case that they should have won their last 5 games. Then the only thing that's keeping you from doing that would be the block punt thing, right? You mentioned it. Tampa Bay they have everything to play for. Atlanta has a very easy schedule the rest of the way. I don't really see them losing a game. Tampa Bay's got a very easy schedule. This is their hardest game left in the schedule by far. But Tampa Bay can't afford to lose any game because they do not have the tiebreaker with Atlanta. And I mentioned this in the crossover. I think you're going to see a team that plays with a lot of urgency in Tampa Bay. But the longer this game goes with it being competitive, the tighter you might see the Bucs play. Whereas the Cowboys could be playing really loose in this game because it's backups. They know they're not going to the playoffs. That's why I think for Dallas, it's important to get this game to the fourth quarter because that's when we're really going to figure out what these two teams are made of.
And I have to say this because it's something worth mentioning. I think the Cowboys are probably the team of the two that's better at dealing with a primetime game on Sunday Night Football. I think that's something to this. So, I agree that if the Cowboys are able to make themselves believe that they are in this game, that they're, the score's tight and that they can win this, the longer that goes on, the worse it is for the Bucs because you're right. They'll start getting tight. They'll start looking at the clock. They'll start thinking about what the outcome is, and they'll, it can start. You start pressing, and again, we've talked about this with Dak Prescott. When the quarterback has to press and the quarterback has to, go out of his comfort zone to make plays, sometimes great things happen, but sometimes terrible things happen, and that's where the Cowboys can kind of take advantage with guys like Bland, who are good at creating turnovers, good at picking off bad passes. Parsons will get a hand on a ball that goes up. Suddenly, the Cowboys have the ball late in the game and within striking distance to win. That's likely how a game script goes where the Cowboys win this game.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Go check out the channel on YouTube. We are free and available on all platforms. Follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. We will be back on Sunday night to break this game down. It'll be available on your podcast feeds on Monday. Enjoy Sunday Night Football. We'll see you guys right back here on Monday.